The rain didn't fall, it punched. Each drop hit the steel hull of the M1 Abrams like a tiny fist, a relentless drumming that vibrated through the floor plates and into Sergeant Anya Sharma's bones. Inside the cramped commander's seat, the world was a chaotic symphony of noise, the hiss of the hydraulics, the low growl of the turbine engine idling at 900 RPMs, and the frantic, static-laced chatter crackling in her headset. The air was thick with the smell of ozone from the electronics, hot metal, and the faint, coppery scent of fear. "Commander, I've got nothing," Diaz, her gunner, reported, his voice tight. His boyish face, illuminated by the green glow of the thermal sight, was pale. This interference is biblical. It's like trying to see through a brick wall. Anya leaned forward, her eyes scanning the panoramic view screen. It was supposed to show a clear, digitally enhanced picture of the battlefield ahead. Instead, it was a blizzard of electronic snow. Outside, somewhere in the Oregon woods beyond the half-mile of churned mud they were stuck in, was the town of Haven Wood. And on the edge of that town was the Ironwood Bridge, a single, vital artery over the roaring Cascade River. A team of Navy SEALs, call sign Reaper 1, had gone in 2 hours ago to secure it. Now, they were being torn apart, taking heavy fire from the North Tower. "Jester is hit. I repeat, Jester is down." The voice belonged to the SEAL commander, Graves. It was strained, stripped of the arrogant calm Anya remembered from the briefing room. "Reaper 1, this is Archangel," a voice cut in, calm and authoritative. "Colonel Thorne. Report status. Over." "Status is Fubar, Archangel." Graves shot back, his words punctuated by the sharp crack of rifle fire. "We're pinned. They've got weapons we've never seen. It's like they know where we are before we move. We can't advance, can't retreat. We need that armored support you've got sitting in the mud." Anya's knuckles were white where she gripped the control yoke. Her tank, the Behemoth, was the only armored support within 100 miles. With its 70 tons of composite armor and a 120mm cannon that could turn a bunker into dust from 2 miles away, it was the ultimate sledgehammer. But Thorne had ordered them to hold position, worried the tank's electronic signature would draw too much attention from whatever was savaging the SEALs. He called her a liability, the memory of the briefing, just 6 hours ago, burned hot in her mind. It was held in a sterile, air-conditioned tent that smelled of canvas and stale coffee. Maps were spread across a folding table under the harsh glare of a fluorescent light. Colonel Thorne, a man whose face seemed carved from granite, pointed a stern finger at the bridge. Beside him stood Commander Graves, the SEAL leader. He was lean, with the easy confidence of a man who had never met a problem he couldn't solve with control violence. His eyes, the color of a winter sky, had swept over Anya and her crew with dismissive speed. Anya had spoken up, her voice even. "Sir, my thermal sights can scan the bridge supports and surrounding structures from 3 clicks out. We can identify enemy hardpoints before your team is even in range. Give us 10 minutes, we can map their entire defense." Graves had offered a thin, patronizing smile. "Sergeant, we appreciate the offer, but this is a surgical operation. We need scalpels, not sledgehammers." He turned to Thorne, a silent dismissal in his posture. "My men are the best in the world. We'll be in and out before the enemy even knows we are there. Just keep your cleanup crew on standby in case things get messy." The words had stung, a familiar sting she'd felt her entire career. She wasn't special forces. She was armor. To men like Graves, she was a glorified bus driver in a steel box, a blunt instrument for a more elegant war. Her crew felt it too. Diaz had bristled, his jaw tight. Pops, her driver, a quiet man who'd been driving tanks since before Diaz was born, had simply stared at the floor, his expression unreadable. Now, the scalpels were broken. The elegant war had gotten very, very messy. "Where is that tank, Thorne?" Graves's voice was a raw nerve. "They're cutting us to pieces." "Behemoth, maintain position," Thorne's voice commanded in her ear. "That's an order, Sergeant." Anya closed her eyes for a fraction of a second. She could feel the deep, resonant thrum of the engine, a sleeping giant beneath her feet. She pictured the bridge, a single lane of asphalt and steel spanning a 100-yard gorge. On one side, a town held hostage by a well-armed, technologically advanced militia calling themselves the Free Patriots. On the other, the United States military, held at bay. And in the middle, a team of elite warriors being systematically dismantled. Something was wrong. It wasn't just the militia's skill. It was their precision. Graves had said it himself. They know where we are before we move. That wasn't good training. That was superior technology. The kind of technology that could see through walls, predict movement, maybe even hack into the SEALs' own sophisticated gear. The kind of technology that made a 70-ton battle tank the only thing that might stand a chance. Pops, she said, her voice low and steady, cutting through the chaos. How bad is the mud? The old driver didn't look up from his controls. His hands, scarred and steady, rested on the levers. It's thick, Commander. But the turbines got the torque. We'll tear up the ground, but we'll move. She'll complain, but she'll go. A question formed in Anya's mind, sharp and cold. Why was Thorne holding her back? He was a good commander, pragmatic and ruthless when he needed to be. He knew what this tank could do. Was he protecting her, or was he sacrificing the SEALs for some reason she couldn't see? The suspicion was a splinter under her skin. It felt like a piece was missing from the puzzle, a piece that changed the entire picture. Commander, look at this, Diaz said, his voice dropping to a whisper. He pointed at a small, flickering icon on his secondary screen. I'm picking up a repeating energy signature from the bridge. Low frequency. Not comms, not radar. I don't know what it is, but every time it pulses, the SEALs take a hit. It was a targeting system. Advanced. Predictive. It was painting the SEALs for the militia's exotic weapons. The sledgehammer wasn't a liability. It was the only. Answer, Colonel Thorne, Anya said into her MIC, her tone respectful but firm. Sir, my gunner has isolated an enemy targeting signal. We believe we can disrupt it. Requesting permission to advance and provide direct support to Reaper 1. The reply was instant, cold, and final. Negative, Sergeant. Your orders are to hold. Do not, I repeat, do not break radio silence or move from your position. Archangel out. The line went dead. The silence that followed was heavier than the roar of the engine. It was the silence of a door being slammed shut, of a hand being withheld. Outside, the rain hammered down. In her headset, a man screamed. Anya looked at the useless view screen, at the swirling static that hid the life-and-death struggle just a half-mile away. She thought of Graves's smug face, of Thorne's unyielding command. She thought of the men on that bridge, the so-called scalpels, bleeding out while the one tool that could save them was ordered to sit and rust in the mud. Her father, a general who had cast a shadow she'd spent her life trying to escape, had told her once, there are orders, and there are orders. A real commander knows the difference. He'd meant the difference between a lawful command and an unlawful one. But Anya was learning there was another difference, the one between an order that served the mission and one that served a man's pride or a hidden agenda. She felt a slow burn of anger rise in her chest, a clean, clarifying heat. It wasn't about pride. It wasn't about proving Graves wrong. It was about the men on that bridge. It was about doing her job. She switched her comms from the command channel to the tank's internal intercom. Her crew looked at her, there. Faces illuminated in the dim, green light of the cabin. Diaz, young and eager. Pops, old and steady. And Miller, the loader, a quiet giant who moved with an economy of motion that was almost graceful. They were her crew. Her family, they're dying out there, she said, her voice leaving no room for argument. Thorne's orders are to hold. He's wrong. Pops's eyes met hers in a reflection of the forward viewport. He gave a slow, deliberate nod. Diaz's expression hardened, his fear replaced by a fierce resolve. He turned back to his targeting controls, his hands flying across the panel. Anya took a deep breath, the smell of ozone and steel filling her lungs. She keyed the intercom. Pops, bring the engine to full power. Diaz, slave the main gun to my command. Miller, load Sabo. She ignored the command channel, now silent. She ignored the potential court-martial, the end of her career. She focused on the sound of the turbine engine spooling up, its low growl rising to a piercing, soul-shaking scream. The entire tank vibrated, a caged beast rattling its bars. Saddle up, Anya Sharma said, her voice ringing with the authority of a commander who had just made her choice. We are going in. The behemoth lurched, its massive treads biting into the thick. Oregon mud. With a groan of protesting metal and a spray of dark earth, the 70-ton sledgehammer began to move forward. It was a slow, grinding advance, but it was an advance nonetheless. They were heading for the bridge. They were heading for the fight. But what Anya didn't know was that the strange targeting signal on the bridge was more than just a piece of enemy tech. It was a lock. And it wasn't just painting the seals. In the moment her tank broke from the tree line, its massive thermal signature blooming in the cold rain, the lock found a new target. The biggest target on the field. The world outside the behemoth was a maelstrom of mud and fury. The tank's powerful headlights cut twin beams through the driving rain, illuminating a hellscape of shattered trees and deep, water-filled ruts. Pops was a master at the controls, coaxing the massive machine forward, feeling his way through the treacherous terrain more by instinct than by sight. The ride was violent, tossing the crew back and forth, but the tank moved with the inexorable force of a glacier. Every yard gained was a victory. Behemoth, what in God's name are you doing? Colonel Thorne's voice erupted in her headset, so loud it made her flinch. He had overridden her channel lockout. I gave you a direct order, Sergeant. You are to return to your position immediately. That is not a request. Anya ignored him. Her focus was absolute, narrowed down to the tactical display on her small monitor. It was still mostly static, but through the interference, she could see the faint heat signatures of the seals, clustered and pinned down at the near side of the ironwood bridge. And she could see the flashes of enemy fire, impossibly fast and precise, originating from the old clock tower in Havenwood and the steel girders of the bridge itself. Diaz, status on that signal, she commanded, her voice a low counterpoint to Thorne's continued shouting, stronger now, Commander. Diaz replied, his fingers dancing across his console. Definitely a targeting array. It's pulsing faster. They see us. They're acquiring. As if on cue, the world lit up with a brilliant, blinding flash of blue-white light. It wasn't an explosion. There was no sound, no shockwave. Just an instantaneous, silent burst of energy that slammed into the tank's front glacis plate. The lights inside the cabin flickered, and a high-pitched whine screamed from the electronics panels. EMP hit. Miller yelled from the loaders. Station. We just took an electromagnetic pulse. Direct hit. Damage report. Anya snapped. Primary targeting is down. Diaz said, his voice strained. Power is fluctuating. I'm trying to reboot, but the system is fighting me. Another silent, blue-white flash struck them, this time on the turret. The main view screen went completely black. The comforting hum of the advanced systems died, replaced by an ominous silence. Only the raw, mechanical growl of the engine and the emergency red battle lights remained. They were blind. We've lost all advanced optics. Anya said, her own heart hammering against her ribs. She switched her vision block to a simple, unpowered periscope. The view was narrow, distorted by the thick, rain-streaked glass. Pops, you still have control. Manual controls are still responsive. Commander, the old driver's calm voice was a balm in the chaos. She'll still drive, and she'll still shoot. We are just doing it old school now. Old school. No digital assistance, no thermal imaging, no laser rangefinder. Just the human eye, a set of gears, and a 120mm smoothbore cannon. For men like Graves, this would be a death sentence. For a tanker like Anya, it was just another day at the office. This was what they trained for, the worst-case scenario. This was where the bond between a commander and her crew was truly forged. Sergeant Sharma, you are relieved of command. Thorne's voice was apoplectic. Power down your vehicle and await disciplinary action. Anya reached up and physically disconnected Thorne's channel from her headset. The silence was a blessing. She was in this now, all the way. There was no turning back through the narrow slit of a periscope. She could see the entrance to the bridge, maybe 400 yards away. The structure was a dark skeleton of steel against the stormy sky. Muzzle flashes, distinct from the blue EMP bursts, flickered along its length. The SEALs were still fighting, but their fire was sporadic, desperate. Diaz switched to manual. Traverse and elevation, Anya ordered. Use the auxiliary sight. I'll be your eyes. We are going to suppress their positions, one by one. Target the bridge's north tower. That's where the heaviest fire is coming from. Roger that. Commander. moving to manual. The turret began to move, its motion slower, more deliberate, a low mechanical groan replacing the smooth, silent hum of the electric motors. It was a conversation between gunner and machine, a language of hand cranks and hydraulics. Anya pressed, her face against the periscope, the cold metal a stark contrast to her warm skin. She watched the distant tower, waiting for the next muzzle flash. It came a moment later, a bright yellow spark. On my mark, she said. Fire. The cannon's report was a physical blow, a deafening concussion that shook the very air inside. The tank. The behemoth rocked back on its suspension as the sabot round, a tungsten dart traveling at nearly a mile per second, screamed across the battlefield. It struck the base of the tower with unimaginable force. Concrete and steel vaporized. The tower, which had stood for over a century, crumbled into a plume of dust and debris. The enemy fire from that position ceased. A small cheer went up from Miller. Even Pops allowed himself a grim smile. Good hit, Diaz, Anya said, a flicker of pride in her voice. Now, let's get closer. Pops, move us up. Use that disabled truck as cover. As the behemoth ground its way forward, a new voice crackled to life in Anya's headset. It wasn't Thorne. It wasn't the militia. It was Commander Graves' behemoth. This is Reaper 1 Actual, he said. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a grudging respect. That was one hell of a shot. We are pinned behind the concrete barriers at the bridge entrance. We've got 3 wounded. We can't pull back. Copy that, Reaper 1, Anya replied, her voice all business. We are on our way. Sit tight. The irony was not lost on her. The man who had dismissed her as a sledgehammer was now hiding in her shadow, praying for her to clear a path. They were 100 yards from the bridge now. The rain was letting up, but a thick, unnatural fog was rolling in, clinging to the ground and wrapping the bridge in a ghostly shroud. It smelled of ozone and damp earth. A microtension tightened. In Anya's gut. This fog wasn't normal. It was too dense, too sudden. It was another tool, another piece of their enemy's sophisticated puzzle. Commander, I'm getting that signal again, Diaz warned. But it's changed. It's pulsing, like a heartbeat. The tank's remaining lights flickered in. Time with the pulse. Red, dark. Red, dark, it's an active jammer, Anya realized aloud. They're not just trying to blind us anymore. They're trying to shut us down completely. The behemoth's engine sputtered. The forward momentum slowed. She's losing power. Pops called out, his voice laced with concern for the first time. The fuel injectors are running intermittent. This frequency, it's messing with the engine's electronics. They were exposed. A sitting duck. The fog was so thick now that Anya could barely see the front of her own tank. The world had shrunk to the confines of their steel shell, a fragile island in an ocean of hostile energy. The rhythmic pulse of the jamming signal was getting stronger, faster. The engine coughed, sputtered again, and then, with a final, shuddering groan, it died silence. The sudden absence of the engine's roar was more terrifying than any explosion. All Anya could hear was the frantic beat of her own heart and the sound of her crew's ragged breathing. They were dead in the water, a 70-ton tombstone less than. 100 yards from the men they had come to save, and then, a new sound began that it wasn't in her headset. It was inside the tank itself. A soft, clear, digital tone chimed through the cabin's internal speakers. It was a sound Anya had never heard the behemoth make before. It was the sound of a private, encrypted channel being opened. A channel that wasn't supposed to exist. A voice followed the tone. It was calm, male, and eerily familiar, though she couldn't place it. It spoke with a chilling, almost robotic precision, completely devoid of static or interference, as if the speaker were standing right beside her. It said one word. Turn back. The voice cut through the silence, a ghost in their machine. It was a calm suggestion that carried the weight of an absolute threat. Outside, hidden in the fog, the enemy was closing in. Inside, a stranger had just hijacked their tank. They were trapped, powerless, and utterly, terrifyingly alone. The sound that came next would change everything. The voice echoed in the sudden, tomb-like silence of the tank's cabin. It was a phantom, a digital ghost that had bypassed their firewalls and security protocols as if they were nothing. Anya's blood ran cold. Every instinct screamed that this was the architect of their problems, the mind behind the militia's impossible technology. Who is this? Anya demanded, her voice a low growl. She scanned her dead consoles, looking for any sign of the signal's origin. There was nothing. Identify yourself. The voice chuckled, a dry, synthetic sound that grated on the nerves. Identity is irrelevant, Sergeant. What is relevant is your current situation. Your engine is disabled. Your primary weapon systems are offline. You are a steel coffin, and my associates are about to nail the lid shut. I am offering you a one-time opportunity to avoid that fate. Turn back. We can't turn back, Diaz interjected, his voice a mixture of fear and defiance. The engine is dead. A temporary inconvenience, the voice replied smoothly. I can just as easily reactivate it. Consider this a demonstration of my access. As he spoke, the tank's engine roared back to life with a sudden, violent shudder. The emergency light stabilized, casting the cabin in a steady, hellish, red glow. Pops's hands flew to the controls, his face a mask of disbelief. I have control, Commander, he said, his voice a stunned whisper. The power to shut them down and turn them back on. This wasn't just a jammer. It was a complete system override. The enemy wasn't just outside the tank. He was inside their very circuits. The microtension that had been building in Anya's chest tightened into a knot of cold dread. This was a battle she didn't know how to fight. Her tank, her fortress, had been turned into a prison, and this voice held the key. What do you want? Anya asked, forcing a calm she did not feel. I want you to convey a message to your commanding officer, Colonel Thorne, the voice said. The name hit Anya like a physical blow. The casual, almost intimate way he said it. Tell him that his brother, Ares, says hello. And tell him that the package he is so desperate to protect is about to be returned to its rightful owner. Thorne's brother. The missing piece of the puzzle slammed into place, and the picture it created was horrifying. Dr. Ares Thorne was a civilian contractor, a genius in cyber warfare and advanced weapons design who had disappeared a year ago after a bitter falling out with the Department of Defense. He had accused them of stealing his work. Now it was clear, he hadn't just disappeared. He had gone to war. He had designed the militia's weapons, their targeting systems, their jamming fields. He was the ghost in the machine this entire siege, Sergeant, Ares continued, his voice laced with the pride of a master craftsman explaining his work, is a piece of theatre. A grand distraction. The Free Patriots believe they are fighting for their liberty. They are merely actors in my play. A distraction for what? Anya breathed. In approximately 30 minutes, a military convoy, callsign Nomad, is scheduled to pass through this region. It is carrying my life's work, the prototype for a next-generation cyber warfare suite, codenamed Janus. The government plans to use it to create a new era of autonomous warfare. I plan to take it back. The midpoint shift was seismic. This wasn't about a bridge. It was never about the bridge. It was about a heist on a scale that could destabilize the entire country. The SEALs, the militia, her own crew, they were all pawns on Ares Thorne's chessboard. The attack on Havenwood was designed to create a crisis, forcing the military to divert all local assets here, Ares explained. It also forces the Nomad convoy to reroute off the main highway and onto a quiet back road, County Road 17. Right where I have a reception party waiting for them. All I needed was for the bridge to be seen as impassable. Anya's mind raced, connecting the dots. Colonel Thorne had ordered her to hold back. He had kept her away from the bridge. Was he trying to protect her, or was he playing his part in his brother's plan, unknowingly or not? The suspicion returned, sharper and more painful this time. Suddenly, a new voice, garbled and laced with static, broke through on the command channel. It was Colonel Thorne. The jamming must have momentarily weakened. Hemeth, do you read? Ares, if you can hear me, don't do this. The signal was weak, desperate. Sharma, my orders have changed. Your new objective is the bridge. You are to destroy it. I repeat, destroy the Ironwood Bridge. That is a direct order. Acknowledge. The transmission cut out, replaced by the humming silence of Ares's open channel. Anya felt like she was drowning. Destroy the bridge. It was the one order that made perfect sense from a tactical standpoint. If the militia were the true threat, deny them the ability to cross the river, to escape or be reinforced. But now, knowing the truth, it was the worst possible command. Your brother is a predictable man, Ares said, a note of pity in his voice. He sees a fire, and his only instinct is to create a firebreak. But by ordering you to destroy that bridge, he ensures the Nomad convoy has no other option but to take County Road 17. He is walking them right into my trap. Poetic, don't you think? The weight of the decision crashed down on Anya. She had two impossible choices. She could obey her commanding officer, a man she was sworn to follow, and in doing so, doom the convoy and hand a weapon of immense power to a traitor. Or she could trust the word of that same traitor, defy a direct order, and forge her own path, with no idea what lay ahead. Commander, what are we going to do? Diaz asked, his young face etched with confusion and fear outside. The fog began to thin. Through her periscope, Anya could see the bridge again. And on it, she saw movement. The militia, emboldened by the tank's silence, were advancing on the SEAL's position. They moved with a fluid, disciplined confidence, their strange, high-tech rifles firing silent bolts of blue energy. The SEALs were out of time. The comms crackled again, this time with Commander Graves's voice, restored by the same mysterious power that had restarted her engine. Behemoth, what is your status? He demanded. We are being overrun. If you can shoot, shoot now. Blow the damn bridge and end this. What are you waiting for, Sharma? Anya looked at the faces of her crew. She saw their trust in her, their reliance on her judgment. She was their commander. The choice was hers alone. She thought of Graves's condescending smirk, of Thorne's cold commands, and of the chilling, logical voice of the man who was playing them all like puppets. The sledgehammer. Graves had called her a sledgehammer. He was right. A sledgehammer doesn't hesitate. It doesn't do surgery. It smashes through obstacles. She made her decision. Miller, load canister shot, she ordered, her voice cutting through the tension like a diamond. Canister? Miller replied, confused. Commander, that's an anti-personnel round. It won't do anything to the bridge. We are not shooting the bridge, Miller, Anya said, her eyes fixed on the advancing militia. We are clearing it. She keyed her MIC, opening a channel to Graves. Reaper 1, this is Behemoth. Get your heads down. We are coming across. There was a stunned silence from the other end. Coming across? Are you insane, Sharma? Your orders are to destroy the bridge. My orders are to save your ass. Commander, Anya shot back. Now get down. She turned her attention back to the ghost in her machine. Ares, she said, speaking his name for the first time. You may have access to my tank, but you don't control me. This play is over. A cold, deadly silence was her only reply. The open channel went dead. A second later, the tank's engine sputtered and died once more, plunging them into darkness and silence. But this time was different. This time, it wasn't a warning. It was a punishment. Outside, a new sound began, the high-pitched whine of multiple energy weapons locking onto their position. Ares Thorne had just turned all his toys against them. The darkness inside the Behemoth was absolute, broken only by the rhythmic, pulsing glow of the enemy's targeting locks painting their hull. The silence was a suffocating blanket. Ares had cut them off, leaving them stranded in the heart of his kill zone. The high-pitched whine from outside grew louder, a chorus of technological wolves circling for the kill. He's not turning the engine back on this time, Pop stated, his voice grim. He's playing for keeps. Then we go dark, Anya said, her mind racing. She was working on pure instinct now, the years of training taking over. Kill all remaining power, even the emergency lights. Disconnect the main battery. Miller moved swiftly in the dark, his hands finding the levers and switches by touch alone. With a heavy clank, the final circuits were cut. The targeting lights vanished. The cabin was plunged into a blackness so profound it felt solid. For a moment, the only sound was their own breathing. What good does this do, Commander? Diaz whispered, his voice shaky in the dark. We are still a 70-ton target. They know where we are. They know where we were, Anya corrected. Ares is arrogant. He thinks he's won. He's expecting us to sit here and wait for the end. He's not expecting us to fight back with the lights off. She paused, letting her crew absorb her confidence. Pops, you have the emergency crank for the turbine starter. A manual starter. It was an archaic piece of equipment, a relic from a time before push-button warfare, designed for just this scenario, A complete electronic failure. It was a backbreaking, last-ditch effort. Got it, Commander, Pops's voice grunted from the driver's compartment. It'll be loud. The second they hear it, they'll open up on us. I know, Anya said. Diaz, get back on the manual controls for the main gun. Miller, keep that canister round ready. The moment that engine turns over, we are moving and we are shooting. We will have exactly one chance at this. The plan was desperate, bordering on suicidal. They would have to restart the engine while under direct fire, then immediately charge onto a bridge swarming with enemies armed with weapons that could disable them with a single hit. It was a gauntlet of unimaginable danger. Anya could hear the heavy, rhythmic clanking of Pop's turning. The emergency crank. Each turn was a groan of metal, a sound that seemed impossibly loud in the silence. It was the sound of defiance. It was the sound of a crew that refused to die outside. The enemy must have heard it too. The first blue-white bolt of energy struck. The turret, the impact a dull, metallic boom that resonated through the hull. Another slammed into their side. The tank shuddered, but the armor held. It was designed to withstand kinetic projectiles, not directed energy, but for now, it was. Holding almost there. Pops grunted, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Just a few more turns. Another energy bolt hit, then another. A spiderweb of cracks appeared on Anya's periscope lens. The air filled with the smell of superheated metal. They were being cooked alive now. Pops yelled. He engaged the clutch. With a deafening roar, the gas turbine engine exploded into life. The tank surged with power. Go! Anya screamed. Pops, get us on that bridge. Diaz, fire at will. Suppress everything. That moves. The behemoth lunged forward, a wounded beast roaring its fury. It smashed through the concrete barriers at the bridge entrance as if they were made of cardboard. In the same instant, Diaz unleashed the cannon. The canister round was a monstrous shotgun shell. It exploded from the barrel, sending a cloud of over 1,000 tungsten balls screaming across the bridge at hypersonic speed. The effect was devastating. Militia soldiers were scythed down. Their high-tech rifles clattered against the asphalt. The initial wave of attackers was simply erased. For a precious few seconds, they had the advantage. The SEALs, seeing the tank charge past them, laid down a storm of covering fire. Commander Graves's voice, full of shock and newfound awe, came over the radio. All Reaper elements, support that tank. Light 'em up. The behemoth thundered onto the bridge, its steel treads chewing up the asphalt. But Ares Thorn was not so easily defeated. As they reached the halfway point, new threats emerged. Automated turrets, hidden within the bridge's superstructure, popped up and opened fire. Drones, small, fast, and armed with energy weapons, swarmed from under the bridge like angry hornets. Turrets at 3 o'clock. Diaz yelled, traversing the cannon manually, his arm straining. He fired again, this time with a high explosive round, obliterating one of the turrets in a ball of fire. But there were too many. An energy bolt slammed into the drive sprocket. On the right side. The tank lurched violently, its right tread grinding to a halt. They started to slew sideways, careening towards the edge of the bridge. We've lost the right track. Pops yelled, fighting the controls. I can't hold her straight. They were losing momentum, becoming a stationary target once more. The drones closed in, their energy weapons whining. Anya knew they had seconds before a critical hit crippled them for good. Her mind raced, searching for a solution, a desperate gamble. Her eyes fell on the bridge's massive central arch and the thick power conduits running beneath it. It was the bridge's main power supply, feeding the lights and systems for the entire structure. Ares was a creature of technology. His automated defenses, his jamming field, they all needed power. He was likely drawing it directly from the bridge's grid.it was a crazy idea, a 1 in a million shot. But it was the only one they had. Diaz, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. See that main power conduit under the center of the arch. I see it, Commander, Diaz grunted, sweat beading on his forehead as he wrestled with the manual controls. That's an impossible shot. We are at the wrong angle, and we are still moving. Make it possible, Anya ordered. Pops, whatever you have left in the left track, give it to me now. Swing the front of the tank towards the center of the bridge. Pops didn't question her. He slammed the left lever forward. The behemoth pivoted on its broken track, its massive cannon swinging around like the hand of a clock. The movement was jarring, a scream of tortured metal, but it brought the conduit into Diaz's auxiliary sight. The drones and turrets were pouring fire into them now. Warning lights flashed across the few remaining functional panels. The smell of burning insulation was thick in the air. Pop slumped over in his seat, a piece of shrapnel from a ricochet having torn through the driver's hatch. "Pops is hit." Miller yelled, moving to help him. "Stay at your post, Miller." Anya commanded, her voice breaking for the first time. But she couldn't afford emotion. Not now. "Diaz, take the shot." Time seemed to slow down. Anya could see the faces of her crew, illuminated by the flashes of enemy fire. She could feel the lifeblood of her tank draining away. Everything rested on this single, desperate act. It was more than a shot. It was a prayer. As Diaz's finger tightened on the trigger, a voice, clear as a bell, cut through the static in her headset. It was Commander Graves. "Sharma, stand down. That's a direct order. The convoy has been rerouted. You're leading us into a trap." The words hit her with the force of a physical blow. A trap. Had she been wrong all along? Was Ariz's story a lie, a double-cross designed to lure her onto the bridge? The convoy was safe. Her mission was a catastrophic failure. The tank was bracketed by enemy fire. The shot was lined up. Her crew was bleeding. And the very man she was trying to save was ordering her to stop. Her hand hovered over the intercom switch, ready to give the order to cease fire. Doubt, cold and sharp, pierced through her resolve. What if Graves was right? Doubt clawed at Anya's throat, a cold, paralyzing poison. Graves's voice was so certain, so clear. For a heart-stopping second, she believed him. Her entire world tilted on its axis. Had she sacrificed her crew, her tank, her career, for a lie? But then, a detail, small and seemingly insignificant, snagged in her mind. The clarity of his voice. Ariz's jamming field was still active. She could feel its oppressive weight on their systems. No transmission should be coming through that cleanly. It was too perfect. "It was a trick. It was Ares, spoofing Graves's voice, a last-ditch psychological play to make her hesitate." He knew military protocol. He knew the power of a direct order from a superior officer. He was using her own training against her. The realization came in a flash of pure, cold fury. The arrogance of it. The manipulative genius. In that moment, Anya's doubt did not just vanish. It was burned away, replaced by an unshakable certainty. "Diaz," she said, her voice dropping to a deadly calm. "Fire." The cannon roared. The high-explosive round wasn't aimed for pinpoint accuracy. It was aimed for disruption. It struck the underside of the bridge arch, feet from the conduit. The explosion was immense, a contained blast that ripped through the superstructure. Steel shrieked and tore. The primary target, the massive power conduit, was severed in the blast. The effect was instantaneous and total. A massive blue arc of electricity erupted from the broken conduit, a miniature lightning storm that lit up the sky. And then, as if a switch had been flipped, everything went dead. The automated turrets froze in place. The swarm of drones fell from the sky like stones, their lights extinguished. The oppressive, pulsing energy field vanished. The silence that followed was the most beautiful sound Anya had ever heard. The militia, stripped of their technological superiority in a single, fiery moment, fell into chaos. Their advanced rifles were now just useless pieces of metal. The SEALs, no longer pinned down, surged forward, their conventional weapons suddenly overwhelming. The tide of the battle had turned, but Anya knew it wasn't over. Her tank was crippled, a smoking wreck in the middle of the bridge. Pops was unconscious, bleeding from a head wound. Miller was trying to administer first aid in the cramped, dark cabin. Through the cracked periscope, Anya saw it. A sleek, black helicopter, unmarked, descended from the stormy sky, landing on the far side of the bridge. The ramp lowered, and a figure emerged, flanked by a small team of heavily armed mercenaries. It was Ares Thorne. He moved with an unhurried, infuriating confidence, heading towards a nondescript commercial truck parked just off the bridge exit. The convoy tech. He had been on site the entire time, watching his masterpiece unfold. "He's getting away," Diaz said, his voice laced with disbelief. "Our main gun is fried from the power surge. We can't stop him." Ares paused, looking back at the crippled Abrams. He saw Anya watching him through the periscope. He raised a hand, not in a wave, but in a gesture of final, dismissive victory. He turned to walk away, but he had underestimated the sledgehammer won last time. Anya's plan had never been just about the conduit. It was a two-part gamble. She had seen the structural stress fractures from the earlier EMP hits. She knew the bridge was weakened. "Miller, get Pops clear of the driver's seat," she ordered, her voice hard as iron. She slid from her commander's chair and squeezed into the driver's compartment, pushing her wounded crewman gently aside. The manual controls were still functional. The left track, though damaged, still had purchase. "Commander, what are you doing?" Diaz asked, his eyes wide. "Finishing the job," Anya said. She slammed the tank into reverse. With a scream of tortured metal, the behemoth's one remaining track dug into the asphalt. The tank didn't just move backward. It dragged its dead weight with it, pulling against the weakened section of the bridge that had taken the brunt of the explosion. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low, groaning protest, the steel girders began to buckle. A fissure snaked across the asphalt. Ares Thorne spun around, his look of triumph turning to one of utter shock. With a final, cataclysmic roar, a 30-foot section of the ironwood bridge tore away, plunging into the churning river below. It took with it the front half of the behemoth. The tank came to a grinding halt, its rear end planted firmly on the remaining bridge, its front half hanging over a chasm of empty air. It was no longer a vehicle. It was a monument, a permanent, immovable roadblock of steel and defiance. Ares Thorne's escape route was gone. It seemed over. The SEALs, led by the real Commander Graves, swarmed the far side of the bridge, surrounding Ares and his now useless mercenaries. He was trapped, but Ares had one last card to play. He smiled, a cold, bitter expression, and tapped a device on his wrist. A dead man's switch. "If I can't have it, no one can." He snarled. On the cargo bed of the truck, the containers holding the Janus technology began to glow with an ominous red light, a high-pitched whine signaling a self-destruct sequence. The SEALs raised their weapons, but they were helpless. The tech was too volatile to risk a firefight. Anya, climbing from the smoking, tilted wreck of a tank, felt a surge of despair. To have come so far, only to fail. But then, a memory surfaced. Something her father used to say. "Every system has a back door. You just have to know the password." Ares had spoken of his father, the famous general, a man who had also raised Colonel Thorne. They would have shared a history, a language. Anya grabbed her personal radio from her belt. It was a simple, low-tech device, immune to the earlier jamming. She keyed the frequency for the emergency broadcast channel, a channel everyone would be monitoring. "Attention, all call signs," she said, her voice clear and strong. "Code Echo X-Ray 7. I repeat, code Echo X-Ray 7. It wasn't a real military code. It was the call sign of her father's first command, a story he had told his children 100 times. A story Ares would know. It was a message not for the soldiers, but for the man. It meant family. "Stand down." On the far side of the bridge, Ares Thorne froze. His head snapped up, his eyes locking on Anya. The self-destruct whine from the truck faltered, and then died. The red lights blinked out. He had built a back door into his own system, a code from his childhood, and in his arrogance, he never imagined anyone else would know it. Just then, a convoy of military vehicles arrived, sirens blaring. Colonel Thorne stepped out of the lead vehicle. He took in the scene, the destroyed bridge, the captured tech, his brother held at gunpoint, and Anya Sharma standing tall beside the ruined hulk of her Abrams. Understanding, stark and painful, dawned on his face. He walked past the SEALs and stood before his brother. There were no words, only the profound, silent tragedy of a family torn apart by genius and betrayal. Commander Graves made his way across the debris-strewn bridge. He stopped in front of Anya. He looked at her, then at the tank she had sacrificed, the sledgehammer that now formed a permanent part of the bridge's defense. He didn't offer platitudes or apologies. He didn't need to. He raised his hand to his brow and gave her a slow, deliberate salute. One by one, every SEAL on that bridge turned and did the same. It was a silent, powerful chorus of respect, an acknowledgement of a debt that could never be repaid. Anya returned the salute, her arm steady, though her body ached with exhaustion. She looked at the wreckage, at the captured trader, at the men whose lives she had saved. She hadn't been the scalpel. She hadn't been the cleanup crew. She had been the sledgehammer that smashed the bridge, held the line, and broke the enemy. And for the first time in her life, standing in the ruins of her greatest victory, she felt truly, completely whole.